And welcome to another of our videos. Today I shall mostly talk about cigarettes. Now, cigarettes come in different shapes and sizes. We've got, for example, the long Super King size, that's slightly wider and shorter regular. I like to call it the short fat one. We've got the elegant, beautiful super slim, and of course we've got the king size format. Officer, this one on the right. I would recognize that face anywhere. Let us take this cigarette apart. What we find in the cigarette is, of course, the tobacco, which is an American blend cut at 1 millimeter. We find the cigarette paper. We have the filter. And we have that tipping paper surrounding it. Tobacco was clear. The next component, of course, is the paper. Now, there's different styles of paper. Apart from the visual aspect, whether they have lines or how white they are, there's two important characteristics to the paper. Does it burn fast or does it burn slow? And how porous is it? Because these papers are not airtight, as you might imagine. They have tiny little pores through which the air can enter sideways into the cigarette. And that's a good thing, because if it was completely airtight, the cigarette would not burn. One thing we do with the cigarette in the European Union, by legislation, it's stipulated that the cigarette has low ignition propensity. That means if you don't draw on the cigarette will self-extinguish and not set your house on fire. How is that achieved? We need to look at the detail again. Basically, I mentioned before that the cigarette paper is porous. What manufacturers on the paper do now is they apply bands of starch onto the cigarette paper, and this starch will shut the pores in the cigarette paper, so in these zones no oxygen can enter sideways into the rod. So if you don't draw on the cigarette, when you reach that non-porous zone, the cigarette will go out. You can actually document that. If you take a cigarette, use a standard text marker, rip it apart and paint a strip on the inside, and then your zones will become visible. I think that is quite enough about the paper. Next one we want to deal with is the actual filter. Oops. Okay, the filter is manufactured from two basic materials. Either it's made from cellulose acetate, this really nice fluffy material, or it's made increasingly out of paper. Basically, this is formed into a piece of filter in whatever size you want. King size, super slim filter, many tiny little fibers. The longer your filter it is, the more it retains, because the smoke will travel through the filter and some of the solid particles will be retained in that filter. It does it exactly what it needs to do. And we come to the final part of that whole cigarette, which is the tipping paper. Now, the tipping paper has a very basic function, but it's very important. It actually fixes the tobacco rod with the paper to the filter and makes it one. Otherwise, it would fall out of your mouth. But there's more to it. Here we have a double roll, And what you notice, if you look through the light, there's tiny little holes. We call them ventilation holes. And when you actually suck on your cigarette, some clean air enters sideways into your cigarette and dilutes the mainstream of smoke that comes from the burning zone. It's almost like if you put a little bit of water into your glass of whiskey. And there we have it. Tobacco, the paper, the filter material, and the tipping. Well, and how you put all these components together in a manufacturing environment, that is part of another video.